Hey guys, I just wanted to give you a quick heads up that today's episode of Grilling JR is a little different than what I expected when I first sat down with Jim and clicked record. We're talking about his early days when he first got in the business, way back when in MidSouth Wrestling. And so you're going to hear some stories about Leroy McGurk and Bill Watts and a lot of other great stories. Some really funny ones that I had actually heard back when JR was doing his one-man shows around the country like a decade ago. I mean, some of the stuff that Jim describes is just laugh out loud funny. But I have to admit, I was not prepared for some of the hard left turns that JR's story included. You know, there were some not so nice men doing some not so nice things back in the day. And these are stories from the 70s. So a lot of this predates my fandom. So some of the names I mentioned, I mean, I had heard a name, but I didn't know the details. And we're going to get a lot of details that are frankly uncomfortable on this podcast. And when we were finished, JR said it was almost cathartic and therapeutic just to talk about all this stuff. But I know that not everyone has that experience. And some of us have had different, more challenging experiences. So just wanted to give you a heads up. Maybe if you're uncomfortable with this sort of content, or maybe this isn't the time or place, maybe you have kids in the car. I don't know where or how you listen. Just wanted to give you a heads up that we are going to be talking about, I guess, hate crimes and certainly race issues, but maybe most disturbingly, sexual abuse. And that's not something that I've ever been prepared to discuss on a wrestling podcast. This is supposed to be a fun escape. We are not going to make it a habit of doing this type of content. I just thought, hey man, we'll just talk about when you broke in the good old days. But JR, as always, is open, honest, and transparent. I asked a question and he gave me the answer. I wasn't prepared for the answer. This is me trying to give you a heads up that some of this is going to be uncomfortable. I'm glad we did it. I learned a lot. It predates my fandom, and it was a worthwhile encounter, but boy, I just had a totally different expectation. So even with the title of this podcast, candidly, we were not even thinking we were going to call something The Dark Side of Mid-South. I wanted to give you a heads up in the title and right here with this message before you heard anything else. And listen, I'm sorry that I'm not more polished or prepared. I had a totally different expectation for this episode, but when we clicked finish, I knew we just couldn't call it How Jim Got Started in Wrestling or something like that. We needed to give you a heads up with the title, and I wanted to record this, disclaimer right at the top of the program. We're not going to make a habit of talking about dark subjects here on the show. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not my aim. But it came out of nowhere here on this one, but it was the truth. It was honest. So out of respect for Jim's experience, we're going to leave it in. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up here. We'll be back next week doing our usual silly stuff, talking about the good old days, not quite from the 70s, but from the early 2000s. Be more WWF, be more back on track. And thankfully wrestling and society got a lot better than it was way back when. All right. Enough of me rambling. Try to enjoy a very different, a much darker Grilling JR. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm good. Are we on?
We're on. Excited to be on with you this morning too, bud.
Happy. We're recording on Monday, back to Monday. We're getting ready to move that around, I hear.
We are. I'd like to start doing it on Friday with you, get a little fallout action from the weekend's events. Of course, this Friday night, Rampage is going to be coming to you from Detroit.
Yep.
And
big crowd expected. I heard that we had some of the folks that are watching this on Thursday, let's say.
Right.
They already saw the size of the house, but based on the advanced ticket sales, I believe that we were about 8,000 tickets sold.
That's awesome.
For Detroit. And it's good. It's a good house. So, old Raphael Morphy does a hell of a job in putting us in these towns, and he uses his past relationships after working over a decade with WWE in the same basic role. He's done a good job of putting these towns in where they got a little bit of identity and separation. So, anyways, it's a good week. I'm going to, as most people will see this, I'll probably be getting settled in Oklahoma. I'm going to go back for a few days and
Cool.
yeah, and see check on my JR's Black Hat Farms project. So you know, I'm so my granny said one time that about something, and essentially meant ignorance is bliss. In other words, sometimes you don't know how much trouble you're in until you're already waist deep in it, type deal.
Right.
I've never worried about this project. My youngest daughter's she's brilliant, and I know that sounds, well, what else are you going to say, JR? It's your kid, but I mean, she really is. She's valedictorian of her class, Bixby High School. She was #1 film student at Tulsa University. She made straight A's, high school and college. So she's bright. And so I'm going to go back and check and see how all that stuff's maturing. I don't talk to them every day. I don't check up and find what did you do this? What did you do today? What's your end of day report? Blah, blah, blah. Things I should do, considering how much money I've invested in this project. But, my theory was, and I hope this is going to be accurate because it's my story and I'm sticking to it, is I wanted to do something for my kids tangible like that while I'm still around.
Right.
And, as we all know, Connie, our tomorrows aren't guaranteed. So I wanted to get them started on this thing. If it hits, they're set. I bought land. We're going to build growing houses. Our dispensary in Tulsa is going to open in, I think around Memorial Day, somewhere in that window. So I'm going to go back to Oklahoma and probably go to a few happy hours and see my buddies and talk a little OU football. Same thing you'd do if you were in Tuscaloosa.
Absolutely.
That's what you do. So it's going to be a good week for me. I'm looking forward to it. It's funny, Conrad, isn't it, that the older we get, the simpler things in life become more important?
Yes, sir.
It's really, really crazy. Hug somebody today, folks, that you love. If I was there right now, I'd hug Conrad. It'd be a little weird, but it's all right.
Hey, we've done it before. We'll do it again. I wish we were doing it this weekend because House Rules is back. AEW is going to be in Corbin, Kentucky this weekend and Salem, Virginia.
Yeah, it's cool.
So if you haven't already, pick your tickets up for that. And by the way, I just want to give a quick plug. It's really cool to go to a television taping for wrestling. It's awesome to go see AEW on a live Wednesday or Friday or certainly a pay-per-view.
Right.
And if you haven't been to a house show, I can't encourage you enough to do this because, I mean, let's be honest, at a television taping, you're not really the priority if you're in the crowd. They're playing for the camera. We're playing for the larger audience at home versus a show that's just for you, that's catered to you, where there's no hurry up and wait, there's no commercial breaks. Go out of your way to check out a live event, a non-televised live event. AEWTIX.com is where you can pick up your tickets. Of course, at the end of the month, Memorial Day, of course, in Oklahoma, everybody's going to be celebrating the dispensary. But Double or Nothing will be here before you know it, May 28th in Las Vegas. Tickets still on sale for that, AEWTIX.com. But if we're talking about tickets, Jim.
Hey, wait a minute, Conrad. We're coming to Huntsville.
And I'm going to be there, and so's Cassio Kid and Dave Silva. I'm pumped, man.
Well, that's 6 seats right there.
Yeah, it is. We're the whole front row just by ourselves. You guys sold a lot more than 6 seats. You're over 60,000 tickets sold for Wembley. All in two. Here we come. Jim, you and I were talking before we clicked record. Outside of WrestleManias, this might be the largest crowd you've worked in front of, no?
I think it is, Connie. I think it is, actually. Now that we started talking about it, I kept thinking, well, what else? Because I've done stadium WrestleManias, a lot of them.
Right.
But I don't think any of them ever topped. I don't know that I was on the one in Dallas. I don't think I was. That's when things, I was not booked regularly on these pay-per-views and things. So, yeah, I'm excited about it, man. I'm glad I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
That's the great thing about my career. I've done it all without sounding like a jerk. All roles. I've done color. I've done play-by-play. I've been a host and blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what I'm doing, but it doesn't matter. I'll be a part of the event, and that's what's going to be cool as hell.
Yes, sir.
Guys like me are, I don't know how many more rodeos I got. And some of that decision isn't really up to me, but nonetheless, I'm excited as hell about this trip. I always enjoy going to the UK. We've done some meet and greets. I sent maybe if I can find it, I'll tweet it out. There's a fan over there that's got all these tattoos, and one of them is Lawler and me.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I thought it was cool as hell, and I got pictures of the guy. So if I can think about it and find them, that's just kind of they're dedicated. My point I'm trying to make here, you long-winded bastard, is I just admire their passion,
Right.
and because we haven't been there, they're even more passionate. So I'm really excited about this whole thing. Congratulations to Tony Khan. That was a ballsy move. That's a huge financial investment to staff, run the stadium. So it's a good thing, man. I'm so happy for our company, and I wish I was in a I might be. I wish I was in a position to see the expressions on faces of the talents when they go out headed to the ring. That's when it strikes you. That's when you get engulfed in the passion and in the enthusiasm. And you can't prepare for it. You say, "Oh, I've been in business 12 years. You ever done anything like? You ever done anything like this?" Well, no, but no buts. It's different. It's like the first time I worked Madison Square Garden. It was special, and this is going to be very special. This is this is a moment that for all of us that are going to be involved, Conrad, are going to be remembering, hopefully fondly, for the rest of our life.
It's a once in a lifetime event. If you haven't made plans yet, what are you waiting for? Pick up tickets right now, AEWTIX.com. It's going to be here before you know it. Time flies, man. And maybe there's no better example of that than today's topic. We're going to be talking about early JR, Jim Ross in Mid-South, and what your experience was like there. Of course, we should remind everybody that Mid-South Wrestling was originally NWA Tri-State Wrestling.
Look at my goddamn haircut. I should be slapped.
I love it.
God
For
damn.
the time period, that was great.
Yeah,
Look at everybody else's hair, though, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, you and I talked briefly about this topic.
Yes.
And Dave, can you put that graphic back up? Now, these guys all basically started in Mid-South.
Magnum TA, Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, Ted DiBiase, Dr. Death, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I mean, on and on and on.
Yeah. Hall of Famers after Hall of Famers. And the one thing about these dudes, everybody you see on that graphic, I hope you're watching on YouTube, except for me and Boyd, Boyd Pierce in his colorful suit. Everybody just they're tough guys.
Yes.
And the system of territory wrestling made one tougher than hell, especially mentally tough, because you essentially, if you're getting what you want, you're never off the road. I mean, never off the road. Every night was a different town. I remember when we didn't run on Sundays, and that ended up being two days on Sundays. That was the day we do our TV Mid-South taping in Tulsa on Sunday nights. Every other Sunday night, 1 hour show. We do record 2 of them, and then we would go from that afternoon. We'd be in Oklahoma City, and it's a 90-mile drive on the interstates. Nothing, and do that. So it was a hell of an ordeal. And of course, the reason I say they didn't want to be off, if they were off, they didn't get paid. There's no, well, you're off. I unbooked you, so here's something. Ain't no shit. Nothing.
Right.
You work, you get paid. You don't work, you don't get paid. That's that's the formula. So I step back sometimes, and maybe at times in my life, because I've been really, really busy at times. I worry that I forget about MidSouth and how I got started. Because look, let's be honest about it, Connie. If I hadn't had my run in MidSouth and sitting under the Cowboys learning tree, along with Ernie Ladd and several others, uh, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I don't know what I'd be doing. Probably be a coach or a teacher, something like that. But
I'll be honest, I've had a lot of fun on our show over the years, just talking about some of my favorite memories of wrestling with you and getting some insight on the little details that we didn't see on camera. But on a show like today, I'm reminded of the time that we did the Houston wrestling episode with Bruce. And I really didn't know much about Houston wrestling. I mean, I knew who Paul Bosch was and I knew some of the guys who went through there, but
yeah,
I learned a lot, and I'm hoping to learn a lot today. And we did our best on research here, but I'm sure you're going to set the record straight on a lot of this. And if you're an old school wrestling fan, this is going to be an episode that's right up your alley. And I will say this: what's old is new again. You'll see people borrowing ideas from this era in modern wrestling all the time. Like, here's a little known fact: that giant North American title that existed way back when, that is sort of what the AEW title is based on. Like, the inspiration for the current AEW world title is the giant North American title. And there's all those pretty iconic photos of Magnum TA and guys like that with that giant, massive belt. That's really what they were looking for. And so, maybe you can get a peek of what could be coming in the future just by taking a look at wrestling of yesteryear. And when we think about that, especially like early Jim Ross, we got to talk about Leroy McGurk.
mm-hmm.
He was the guy who was really running NWA Tri-State Wrestling, a former amateur and professional wrestler himself. The territory covered not just Oklahoma, but Arkansas, Louisiana, and a few towns in Mississippi, Missouri, and Texas. Is this the wrestling you grow up on? And tell us, how you first discover or hear of this territory.
Well, I watched McGurk's TV show every Saturday for most of my life. And the TV we got was out of Tulsa. I lived about 100 miles east of Tulsa in a little town called Westville, home of the Westville Yellow Jackets. And my family came there to that county before statehood. So I had land down there. It's been in the family since the 1880s. So my roots are there, and I watched wrestling. If I was a good boy, because my dad hated wrestling and roller derby, I got to watch wrestling and roller derby on Saturday afternoons. They ran back to back. It was a dream come true. Roller derby led off, and then it rolled right into championship wrestling. And a guy named Danny Williams was the announcer. He was a local TV personality in Oklahoma City, and I think it was a studio show we did with one coverage camera. They call them the hard camera a lot now. You see them with the TVs and things. That one area is always separated. The hard camera's there, and we had one handheld. That was it. You had two cameras. I was in the business a long time, Conrad, before I even used a set of cans like this. It was a stick mic, and you couldn't hear yourself. Now, the glory of that was, as I grew to know at times, is that you couldn't hear from anybody. You took your time cues from the handheld camera guy, because he just switched his camera around. There you'd be for your little on camera. And then my first broadcast partner was Mr. McGurk, who was blind.
My goodness, that's a challenge. No.
Yeah. Well, you got to understand your audience, I guess, and see. He's got to communicate with me, because I can see and he can't, and I'm the play-by-play guy and he isn't. So let me lead the dance.
Right.
And that was one of the big adjustments for me. When I came to AEW, and after getting moved to Rampage, but basically just doing color as an analyst. I like being an analyst. I like doing color. So, and I think I bring something to the table, a different perspective, and I don't take myself too seriously. So I like I like working with Leroy was challenging, Conrad. So I had to be very graphic. I had to be very where he could see like radio, the theater of the mind. And at the end of the day, I probably talked too much like I am now, but he was just really an interesting man to work with. And I didn't realize how much influence I had until maybe 10 years later, because he was going by what I said, and I'm a friggin' kid just trying to do this job of my dream job, but with 2 mics and 2 cameras.
Talk to me a little bit about Mr. McGurk, because I know that I've been fortunate enough to see your live show in person. And as I understand it, you're going to be doing some more of those later this year. So stay tuned for that. But I've seen your show in person, and you tell a story about making a road trip with Mr. McGurk. And
Yeah.
as I understand it, back in the day, he liked his cigars, and well, something happened. Can you fill in the blanks for us there?
Yeah. We did TV production on Tuesdays in Shreveport every Tuesday. So even though the shows were taped on Wednesday night, you still had to do the inserts. Here's Hacksaw Jim Duggan. He's going to be in Baton Rouge on Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. So you still had to go down there. So I'm taking him down there. Of course, he didn't drive well. I did the driving, and that was an adventure. God bless him. He's a tough old bastard, boy. I mean, he was that Irish. He was All-American at Oklahoma State. He's a national champion amateur, and he had a short fuse, very short fuse. I remember one time taking him to the bathroom, and that's another one of my gigs. I'm probably the only guy in wrestling history to take Leroy McGurk to take a dump and wash the McGuire's backs in the shower.
I think you're one of one there, pal.
I think so.
Yeah.
That should give me booked some of these appearances I'm on right there. Just those 2 things. So, I don't know where I was, but I'm having fun talking about this. I can tell you that. But McGurk was just he wrote all his own publicity. He was
You're
a
doing
journalism
a car trip with him, if you recall.
Well, the car trip was okay. Thank you. We're driving from Tulsa to Shreveport. It's about a 5-hour drive, I think. We had this one little greasy spoon, little restaurant on the side of the road that he liked to stop at because it was just an old diner type thing. And he liked their fresh vegetables. That's another thing I learned to do. Feed a blind man. You ever feed a blind man, Conrad?
I have not, no.
You got to put the potatoes at noon and the green beans at 3 and the chicken fried steak at 6. And everything had a place.
Got
and
it.
That's what I would tell him. And he would know then to go as his plate set in front of him and what he was getting. A lot of unique little things I learned. I'd also never driven in a Cadillac. Leroy had a Cadillac. And so that was another first. It's a lot of firsts. So, but on the way down there, he says to me, he always carried an old time satchel, leather satchel, like you'd see in these old movies and stuff. And I don't know how old the damn thing was, but it was a high dollar leather custom made satchel, which means it was kind of an inflated briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting back in the car, I'm trying to think where he showed me the gun. He had this biggest goddamn handgun I'd ever seen. It looked like one of those Clint Eastwood guns, Dirty Harry thing. And I said, "What, Mr. McGurk? Why do you need that gun? Why do we need the gun?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to kill Ted DiBiase over at Shreveport. Matter of factly, like I'm going to order green beans. You're going to put them at 3:00." So I make a phone call. And we didn't have cell phones, so when you made a call to lower the rate, you would call collect, and you call, and they say, "Who's calling?" And it was always the same person. For some reason, they used Gene Kaninsky as the person always calling in, who wouldn't get the phone call, the collect call accepted, but they would, they would do their thing. So Cowboy starts laughing. I said, "Well, I don't think it's so fucking funny, be honest with you, Cowboy. Bill. And, but what he was going to have me do was I was going to take him to the Alamo Plaza Hotel, check him in, leave his door cracked, and his chair was going to be sitting right in the door. So when the door opened, it was just right there. And he had this huge fucking handgun that he was going to blow DiBiase away. You know why? Because DiBiase was secretly dating Mike McGurk. And Leroy had a hard, fast rule. My daughter is not going to date any wrestlers. So he was very set on that deal. He was very serious. Hey, if you're talking about murdering somebody,
that's pretty serious.
You're pretty damn serious. So I'm thinking to myself, driving into Shreveport, what am I going to be charged with? Accessory to murder? What the hell's going on here? So luckily, as the story ended, we know Ted DiBiase did not get killed.
Right.
He made it through. Cowboy met me at the Leroy's room. Cowboy stayed in the same place and took over the reins. Was because by that time, Leroy had already gone through a half a pint of whiskey just out of the bottle. He drank every day. Every day I was ever around him, and I was around him a long time. But he was a hell of a professor to teach me wrestling. And it's all fundamental stuff. And sometimes I get too heavy in the fundamental stuff, even in today's world, because especially I don't think the young talents really want to hear it. Fundamentals. And so Leroy taught me fundamentals. And then, of course, Cowboy was a genius. And he had a lot of confidence in me, which made me want to work with him more.
Right.
It's pretty cool stuff, man. So I had a great undergraduate, graduate school type arrangement. And then I topped it off with Vince. So my education is still ongoing. None of us can just sit back and say, okay, I don't want to improve anymore in my life. I like everything just like it is. And that, my friends, is a recipe for disaster.
I know that, just being sort of the handler, if you will, for a blind guy has got to be tough. Something I've never asked, though, and I'm not really sure, because you told us he was an amateur wrestling badass, but
yeah.
How did Mr. McGurk lose his sight?
Well, he lost one eye as a kid in some kind of backyard accident, running, playing stick, boom. But he went through high school and college with all that amateur athletic success with one eye, sight in one eye. So he overcame, stubborn, focused, and a hell of a wrestler. Some of the greatest pictures I've ever seen to this very day were him wrestling and during his wrestling days. He had a big run in Hollywood, not as an actor, but as a wrestler, because wrestling was big there at that point in time in Hollywood. So he had pictures taken with, Gorgeous George and James Cagney and Jack Benny and Lucille Ball, and they were at the events, and he was signing autographs for them or shaking their hand or whatever it may be. So he got to be big and got over, and then he got blinded. To finish to answer your question, in the early 50s, in a car accident. Now there's various stories about the car accident. Some say it wasn't a car accident. He got poked in the eye in a fight. That sounds romantic, but I don't know that happened. I can see it. He's confrontational, and it could have happened, but I don't think it happened. Here's why. There's an old-time wrestler named Bob Clay, Cowboy Bob Clay from Muskogee, Oklahoma, who was with him. Now, Conrad, you've been in the business long enough in your unique role to know that wrestlers have a hard time keeping a secret. And by your laughter, I assume you agree with me.
That's fair to say. Yes, sir.
And so if all these years and one wrestler knew what really happened because he was allegedly there, don't you think it would come out by now?
Yes.
Of course, because wrestlers don't keep secrets very well, unless it's from their wife or significant other. So that's how he lost his other eye, and then he had to. He got very committed to the blind dog causes, not blind dogs, but dogs for the blind.
Right.
One of my jobs was to go to the public library and get him these uh, books on it's like a big album, big like a record the size of an album. But what it was these they were books, audio books, and I didn't know they even had such a thing.
Right.
That's before us what we're doing, you know.
Right.
And so he was an interesting man. I learned a lot from him. I learned more about the world and sometimes what not to do. He was very verbally abusive to his wife. He was a very nice lady. But I can see how he could be bitter, and he drank too much. So I used to get a kick out of his conversations with Moolah. He hated talking to her.
Why's that?
She always wanted to be booked. Moo, he'd say, he'd call her Moo. Moo, you were just here a month ago. So Moo didn't have any bookings, enough bookings, shall we say. And he was just funnier than hell. So the phone would ring, and he had one office, of course, the lobby office is where it was. And whoever answered the phone said, Leroy, it's Moolah. And then he'd go off on one of the great promos of all time. God damn that bitch. I don't want to talk shit. She's a pain in the ass. She didn't sell any tickets. Blah, blah, blah. Then you get on the phone with her. He'd say, hi, Moo. Like he just couldn't wait to talk to her. Hi, Moo. So Lillian Ellison was a pain in the ass to Leroy McGurk. I can imagine that. So anyhow, that was just part of this whole trip. It's just, you know, the Leroy stuff is just amazing. And he was volatile, but he could hear things when he's calling a match. If I said Hodge body slams him, and of course the body slam, we were in a little building, it seemed about 100, and it was tight, and the acoustics were pretty decent, but it was just small. And he could embellish on the body slam by what he heard.
Right.
So it's pretty cool shit. When I think more about it, it's just I learned that from Leroy, or this Leroy I did that. This is a first time experience, whatever. One of the things about that car ride from Tulsa to Shreveport, Conrad, is that he put the gun on the dashboard. Now I know it's loaded, because I don't know how they do in Alabama, but grown men don't carry unloaded guns.
That's right.
So we have this thing going on where we're talking about this deal. He smoked his frigging cigars and you know, I probably could have got by with smoking a joint with all that cigar smoke because it was stinky as hell. But that never happened. So we got the gun on the dashboard, and he's not paying any attention to flipping his ashes, and he got a coffee can, like a Folgers or some brand, big coffee bowl container, and that's what he used for an ashtray because he couldn't miss. The hole's this big, you know. So he was still drinking. So here I got a big old 45 or 38 special or some, whatever the hell the numbers are. And he just, yeah, there he is with a gun. There's a man with a gun over there telling me not to be square. It starts when you're always afraid.
A blind man with a gun, just to add context here.
Oh,
and the gun is sliding around the dashboard.
On the dashboard. And in the meantime, he's not flipping his ash on a cigar. And Leroy wore pants probably at least 1 or 2 sizes too big because of the comfort in his perception. And his favorite brand, I don't know if they even make them anymore, were J. Mar Sansbelt double knits. And so because he bought such larger pants that he actually needed, there was a lot of slack down there. Just, it was just, and so all of a sudden, not that I would have stopped him after him cursing me and putting the fucking gun on the dashboard loaded, it burned a hole in his double knits. And the big old ash, which is probably this big, I'm serious, burned through. Well, it's got to land somewhere.
Oh no.
Yep, it landed right in his nest. So now he don't have a fucking clue that the ashes were even existing. He thought it's a routine. Flip the ash.
Right.
And man, everything, it shocked him. He didn't know what was going on. So now he's trying to hit himself in the balls, trying to put this fire out. And he's slinging his arms and slapping me in the face. It's like a Three Stooges routine. And I'm doing this, the car, trying to keep it in our lane. And so if a car's moving here to here, there goes that goddamn gun. Sliding down. And I stopped the car, and he wanted to know what happened. But when I stopped the car, I had to come around the car on the shoulder of the road to help him. And he still thought he was on fire. Well, I'm trying to figure out now, what can I do to help you, type thing. I didn't say that. But I did all that I could, which is limited, and to make sure that his double knits were not, they're pretty damn flammable, quite frankly. So anyhow, I got the fire out, and I hit him in the balls 2 or 3 times, which was fun as hell. Hey, look, he'd been abusing me. And I had a good excuse. All I'm trying to do is put your pubic hair fire out. He should have had Manscaped or something.
I was going to say there's got to be an easier, better way to Manscaped. And here's the deal. Summer's coming. Are you ready to unveil that beach bod? Well, don't go thinking you got to send your hairs down there. Manscaped is here to ensure your body is ready for the wild with their game-changing full-body grooming and hygiene products. Don't be the guy at the beach with Austin Powers chest hair. And if you grew some winter man tits, the least you can do is make sure they're hairless. It's time to get ready for a hot guy summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code Jim Ross. I mean, let's just talk about it. Manscaped is dedicated to helping you increase your confidence and level up your full body grooming game with the Performance Package 4.0. Of course, this kit comes with the essential Lawnmower 4.0. It's waterproof, and it's the cordless body trimmer you need with all the other liquid formulations to round out your grooming routine. Whether you're grooming your chest or your treasure chest in your pants, this is the best trimmer on the market. It's a ceramic blade designed to cut hair on loose skin, and it's going to reduce grooming accidents thanks to that proprietary advanced skin-safe technology. You can even, if you want to, and I've got it on good authority that Jim has done this, he's trimmed an arrow pointing down to the promised land. You can do that too here. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll also find the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant. Fun fact, Tony Schiavone had stinky nuts at Starbucks, started using this product. Now he's on Wednesday nights every single week. The Crop Reviver Ball Toner got Eric Bischoff hired back at WWE. He missed one shipment and boom, his ass was back in Wyoming. So don't miss the Crop Reviver. By the way, nobody likes nose hairs, so make sure you check out the Weed Whacker 2.0. It's in this same pack. It's exactly what you need. And how about 2 free gifts? The Shed Travel Bag, no fooling, JR's absolute favorite. If you see him on TV, let me assure you, back at the hotel, that Shed Travel Bag is there.
That thing's durable, man. It's durable. It's the best. Seriously, it's the best travel bag, shaving kit, whatever you want. For some reason, I think when I was a kid, they used to call them a dock kit.
That's right.
Remember that, Conrad?
That's right.
Dock
Yes,
kit.
sir.
So it's the best I've ever had, ever. And I didn't even buy the Manscaped for that. I thought it came along with the deal.
That's it. It's a free gift. It's included.
Obviously.
You'll also get some Manscaped boxers. And hey, if you're rocking sandals this summer, you need the Shears 2.0 nail kit. Having the right tools for grooming is essential. Do yourself a favor. Always use the right tools for the job. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code Jim Ross at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code Jim Ross at manscaped.com. Trim your chesticles with the besticles. Jim, let's talk about what happens in 1970. Mr. McGurk has enlisted several part owners into the territory. He's going to be working with Fritz von Erich, Vern Gagne, and Cowboy Bill Watts.
Yeah.
Watts, though, has decided he wants a bigger share of the pie. He wrote in his book, quote, "I gave Vern my notice and then called Leroy and told him, look, I'll work out my deal with you when I get there, but I'm coming home to be your partner. I started making some calls, booking talent. And when Vern called me on it, I said, yeah, I'm booking talent there. Fuck you. You're out." Vern and Fritz knew a good thing, so they met and agreed to make me a full partner. The next thing I knew, I had 17%. Vern and Fritz each had 20%, and Leroy had the remaining 33%. Leroy sold the other 10% to Danny Hodge, still his top star. Man, Bill Watts is just the man here, just calling his shot and saying, this is the way life's going to be. He's a big star. He's got some leverage. That's an important thing to have in wrestling or business, is it not?
Yeah, it sure is. That whole deal, he wanted to make money, obviously, off the sale of tickets, because that was 99% of your revenue, ticket sales to live events. And there were no pay-per-views. All the normal things you see now that we take for granted did not exist. So Cowboy made that deal, so he had access to talent. So he had all those guys had stars that had name identity. Von Erichs, for example, Fritz, or excuse me, Vern didn't have as many at that time. It didn't seem like that had national exposure, but I know that they did. And and you could never get too much Nick Bockwinkel because he was just amazing, among others. So I think that it was a talent thing, because you'll soon, as we talk about this, you'll soon see how Cowboy reversed the trend, and that percentage that Leroy owned was mighty attractive.
Let's talk about how you get in, because as I understand it, you are doing a fundraiser in college and somehow get involved. Or talk me through how you first come in contact with the territory and have a chance to really be an asset to the business.
Well, I went to college at Northeastern State University in Tahlequah, and I was a member of the Phi Lambda Chi fraternity, kind of like you'd think, with me in it and others, kind of an Animal House type deal. But they meaning McGurk and Cowboy, would run a commercial, a crawler or something to let people know that you could sponsor championship wrestling in your facility, and to raise funds for your charity. And I remember the deal. I did so many of them. I booked them, and I ran the shows, promoted the shows. I wasn't the only guy that did it, but I was one of the guys, because I could make more money. The more you work, the more money you make.
Right.
Learned that really early on. In pro wrestling, it's never more true. So the deal was it was an 80-20 split. We got 80, and out of our 80, we provided the wrestlers and the ring and all that shit. And they got 20% of the gate, and they kept the concessions. So that was a simple deal. And I learned to promote. I mean, I learned to work with the local newspapers and radio stations and things of that nature. So I was just continuing to get that education by opportunities presented to me by Leroy and Bill. So look, Conrad, they had a bunch of extra old time fair to middling when they were good. Ex-wrestlers around. It was who could get to the trough early. In other words, who's going to be involved in a double knockout at the office to get their check or not, whatever. So I got a great education in that deal. But it was 80-20 split. I did a show in our college gym in Tahlequah. I think at that time it was known as Redmond Fieldhouse. I don't think they're even Redmond anymore. Politics got that deal killed. Even though it's the capital of the Cherokee Nation. Get that. Their team forever was known as the NSU Redmen. That's not politically correct anymore, apparently. So they changed their name to something else. I don't even know what it is. It's non-existent, non-meaningful to me. Riverhawks or something like that. And I had to love going to school there. I met my first wife there.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I sure did. So anyhow, that's another story for another podcast, which will never happen. So, Grandpa's I got grandkids now, that lineage. My daughter's she's a licensed physician assistant. I thought about that, how she had trouble with high school math, and now she's writing scripts and giving shots and all that stuff. So I'm proud of her. But anyway, where were we talking, Conrad? I was talking about something.
Well, we're talking about how you first get started, and you wrote.
Yeah. Let me finish that.
Yeah.
And so we went to the president's fraternity and myself. He was also a huge wrestling fan, just like me, to the point of being a little bit needing an intervention, maybe. We went to Tulsa to meet with McGurk and Watts to close our deal. And really all it was just a way for us to get 2 free tickets to the wrestling matches that night on Monday night in Tulsa. And so the little meeting we had, just to dot a few I's, cross a few T's, et cetera, was done after the live event. And Cowboy was in the main event that night. I think he wrestled maybe Harley. Anyway, the match was stopped due to too much blood, believe it or not. And they had a good match. I remember that. And we got first or second row seats. It was pretty cool. Then we had our meeting. And then we had that show, and it sold out. It sold out with Hodge on top. Then we had a second show later on. And Cowboy headlined that one. And it also sold out. So my little track record, I was 2-0, so to speak. And anyway, Watts told me there in that night, he said, "Look, kid, I don't know what you're going to do when you get out of college. How much you got left?" And I said, "About a semester." He said, "I don't know what you're going to do when you get out of college, but if you are interested, I might have something for you to do." I thought that was the greatest news I'd ever heard in my life. I had no idea what it was. Had no idea what I was going to get paid. How that evolved was I was going to become a catch-all. I was going to get $125 a week and what other little gigs I could pick up on. Like if I went on those spot shows, the Kiwanis, if I haul the ring behind my vehicle, I got a little bit more money. So everything all the add-ons I could add on, I did. So I could half-ass make a living. There weren't a lot of trips to the mall at that time. Times were a little bit rough, but I was learning so much I didn't even realize. Later on, it all came on like a big light bulb.
What year was that, do you think, if you had to guess?
74.
Just to put that in context, though, $125 a week would have been $765 today.
Yeah.
So not a ton of money.
No.
You can pay your bills if you're frugal and skirt by, but you're right. You're going to need to pick up whatever you can. And I think what I've learned in my research, correct me if I'm wrong, this first show you run, Danny Hodge is on the show. Is this your first time seeing him live in person?
He was the main event that night. I don't know who you worked with. Maybe Akbar, Skandar Akbar maybe, but whoever one of the top heels were, and Hodge worked with him. Of course, Hodge went over. And those shows like that, you just don't outsmart yourself. As a rule, you're going to let them go home happy.
Right.
Simple thing psychologically. But yeah, I saw Hodge. No, I saw Hodge down the road in a little town called Stillwell. They had a spot show when I was in high school, and I convinced my mother to go to take me, because I knew the old man wasn't going to go. He ain't gonna get out of his chair, so he ain't going. So, but Mom went, and we got two of her girlfriends went. Then then the picture started clearing up a little bit. There were a lot of good-looking guys in underwear with good bodies, and so all the ladies had a good time. It's oogling, window shopping, I guess you'd say. So I saw Hodge work there. He worked all those shows because he was the draw.
Right.
And so then when he came to Telequat, Northeastern State, he still was on top. He wasn't quite as solid on top then, as he was before, because Cowboy was in, and Cowboy was redoing the roster to where he got some bigger guys in there so he could work with them. You know, Hodge working with a 200-pounder is that's hard to pull off. I've always said it about the Undertaker. The greatness of the Undertaker could be described in the fact that he can make a match with anybody competitive. And here he is, a 7-foot babyface. That's tough.
It is tough.
So anyway, those two opportunities to promote shows. I gave. I think what really got me hired. I wish I had a copy of it. But I think what got me hired was I gave Cowboy a post-event report, which he hadn't gotten since he bought the territory. He didn't know what I did. He didn't know, and because we're a nonprofit organization, all the things that we did, like buying radio spots, were free.
Right.
The radio stations was going to compass some spots, the local station,
as a public service announcement, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the budget was there. Didn't need to be a budget, so it worked out. It worked out fine, and I think that report may have probably sealed my deal, because I was organized. You know, the young, full of piss bender college kid who loved wrestling and still does.
You wrote in your book, the way Watts described my initial job with Leroy was, you're going to pick up Mr. McGurk in the morning and bring him to the office, run errands for whatever he needs, help him out around the office, then take him home. I quickly learned that what Leroy needed first, before anything else, was his daily El Producto Presidente cigars and a pint of whiskey.
Yep.
And every other Tuesday, you'll be responsible for getting him to Shreveport for TV, Watts continued. On those days, I was to make sure that Leroy's coat was buttoned and fly was zipped, and that he was wearing the right shirt with the right pants, basically making sure he was presentable for the television cameras, where he would then color commentate the matches. And you also would continue that, man, this is not without incident. Right from the start, I got a double shot of the Leroy McGurk Bill Watts philosophies as they routinely butted heads. Their arguments, though, were a masterclass for me to witness. I was frequently exposed to two professors who had different theories on how to make money in the wrestling business. Within a couple of weeks, I saw that McGurk was the figurehead boss who had enough clout to make changes to a card. He was brilliant when sober, when it came to verbalizing the basics and the psychology of a wrestling match. I could see that behind the smoke and liquor breath, Leroy was an extremely smart man. The two philosophies, though, can you tell us how they may have differed with McGurk and Watts and their approach to the business?
Small things, like Cowboy would be willing to do more than one DQ on a card. McGurk would not. Cowboy wasn't a big fan of draws unless it led to something. And Leroy had no issues doing. It got predictable. Fans that get there, they get the first match is one fall with a 10-minute time limit. So guess what's going to happen? 10-minute time limit draw.
Right.
So the predictability of Leroy was more formulaic. Cowboy was more Wild West. Leroy built his platform on wrestling. I harken back to Saturday night when Cody beat Brock Lesnar.
Yes.
With a wrestling hold.
He did.
A nice counter. And I know Lesnar got kicked out at 3.5. So what? That cannot be made an issue, at least in my eyes. But it just shows you that smart booking and strategizing is this wrestling shit still works. So anyway, I lost my spot again.
Was the talent split? Like were there Leroy guys?
No, they're Cowboy guys. The old school guys, Conrad, the guys working underneath, who are just happy to be booked. Old school guys, 50 years old. Guys like a Jack Pesic or some of those other guys, Tretch Phillips. And of course, they were in the Leroy's office. Cowboy wasn't in the office every day. He was there most of the time. But it's always ironic that the older talents who knew they were just getting to hang on right now because they need to fill the card in the bottom of the card. They knew when Leroy was there every day. And so they go in there and kiss Leroy's ass and knock everything and knock everybody. And here's the problem was I was in there too because I was Leroy's valet, his gopher. So I heard all that shit. And when you're a 20-something-year-old kid, I was 22 years old when I got into business. I didn't know right. I didn't know what I was hearing was accurate. It was disturbing or whatever. I just didn't. It was a tough spot for a young kid like me to be. I had to process all this info. And of course, I was not like any other of those talents. I acquiesced to Cowboy. Cowboy was my guy. And if I heard, and those guys are the stupid as hell, let me even be in the room when they're having their little private meetings and knocking everything. So what they're doing, they're knocking all Cowboys booking. And so I had to sit there and listen to that shit. So and as time went on, I knew what was right and what was wrong in that respect. But I was in a unique role there, and they were so stupid, those old guys, they didn't realize it. Why would you have me in there?
Right.
I guess they just thought I was harmless, Conrad, and I wasn't.
Leo Voss, you wrote about in your book as being someone who took you under their wing. What can you tell us about Mr. Voss? It's not a name I'm familiar with.
Great guy, tougher than hell. See, back in the old days, the referee had a lot more influence. Hell, some of them were bookers, and I know some of them were calling spots and basically directing or producing while the matches were ongoing. Come back, sell, wait, whatever. They're just little things, but they had a lot of influence. And Leo was a good booker, and he just had been around forever. He was an old shooter. Had no problem shooting you. I mean, shooting you. I found out that one of Leroy's confidants was on the police department, and he also was known to be a little handy with his firearms and stuff. It was crazy, man. It was really crazy. It's almost like a little mafia, but nobody got shot that I can remember. So anyway, Leo was also a very well-known in that part of the world speedboat driver. And he had a bad wreck and messed up his eyesight. And so he was unable to continue as a referee, but he's so smart in the booking that Leroy kept him around. And Leo was very loyal. I remember Ken Patera I was just a rookie. I had never done this. They made me a referee under Leo Voss's tutelage. And so we're going over a finish or something, and Ken Patera's in the match, I believe, at that time. And he wanted to give me a bump on a DQ where he threw me over the top rope, and there wasn't no match, nothing on the floor. And it was kind of a dangerous bump if you'd never done it before. It may sound very mundane now. And so I remember Leo gave him a dog cussing, because all he wanted to do was it was a bully type thing. And so I had Leo was my guy. And so on those towns we'd run like Little Rock or Fort Smith, Wichita Falls, Oklahoma City, Leo would ride with me. I would drive, obviously, but Leo would ride with me, and he'd give me he tutored me about how to be a referee. And I took a lot of pride in being a referee. It's a different world than it is now, because guys, essentially, either they're worried about doing it or they're not smart enough to do it, Conrad. But most of the guys in wrestling today, in all companies, basically don't fail to recognize or more importantly utilize the referee. It's just they're just there. So anyhow, but Leo was a real important guy in my career. He was a good man, and I thought the world of him. Conrad, he babysat me. He made sure an old guy like that getting a responsibility to put a kid, but they put this kid, me, in his hands to teach me how to be a referee. So now I can do promotions, I can do refereeing, I can do announcing, and then I can do ring announcing, I can promote shows. I figured that in this crazy business that I would be better off with as many tools in my toolbox as I could possibly pack. And so that was kind of my mission. I knew I'd find something I was going to be good at, or at least that was my thought anyway.
So just to refresh everybody, so far what we've discussed is you're Leroy's assistant. You're helping out in the office all week during the day. You're going to promote some towns, and at night you're going to be working as a referee.
All right.
You're really entrenched in this, but we talked about, you were trying to finish college before you got into the wrestling business.
I didn't make it. 17 hours and I left.
Had you finished?
Big mistake.
What do you think you would have done? Like if you wouldn't have gotten into wrestling?
I'd been in education. I'd be somebody's athletic director now. I would probably try my hand at coaching until I found out that they didn't make any money unless you're on the special level. But I think education, my heart was in that, I think. And I might have worked might have bought a radio station or something along those lines. But I wouldn't have ventured too far away from what I'm doing now, or what I'm, the wrestling business. I would still be in communications of some sort, but I really enjoyed working with young athletes, and I think that's why I had so much fun in a very trying job as a head of talent relations, because that's kind of like coaching to me, and I approach it that way. And I gained a lot of respect from guys because I treated them as athletes and not entertainers.
What did you've talked a little bit about your dad on this program. What did your dad think of you getting into professional wrestling?
Oh, he thought it was short term, crazy. Again, as I mentioned, Daddy was never a big wrestling fan.
Right.
And because sometimes the boys expose the business themselves. The old deal where you Irish whip somebody into the corner, you follow them in, you mount the second rope, and you start raining fists down in the face of your adversary. Well, here's what I didn't even want to bring it up because it made me uncomfortable. But how is it these guys can get hit in the face about 10 times? Because it's 10 because you're going to count it out. You get hit in the face about 10 times. When all is said and done and the dust is clear, Conrad, there's not a mark on your other guy's face.
Right.
No black eye, no bloody nose, no busted lip, no nothing. And that internally bothered me because I thought it was an expose, even though I didn't know what an expose was. And so my dad would say, sometimes he'd watch with me, if Hodge was on, he'd watch, but he felt like Hodge was real. And so he would say, I would say, well, Dad, you know this guy's got thicker skin than regular people. Their skin is different. I was reaching for something, and I think my dad had like a spit take on that one. Like, Jesus Christ, son. So anyway, but Daddy was never. Now when I started getting more notoriety, he started kind of liking that, because people would say, this is J.D. Ross, and of course, his boy is Jim Ross. He's does the wrestling on television. Oh, so, and Dad kind of liked that deal, little adulation. So at that point in time, he started becoming a little bit of a fan, which that was kind of cool. He was a fan before he died, so I liked that part. He was proud of me. I went home one time, Conrad and I, on a visit, and I had my year-end check stub in my wallet for some reason. So it was the last check of the year, and it had on there year-to-date taxes and all that shit. So he saw he said, "Are you doing all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm doing great." I said, "Here, I'll show you something." So I showed him my check stub, and I thought he was going to have a heart attack. He couldn't believe how much money it was, and it was not. And what he was looking at was my withholdings. I said, "Dad, my year-to-date earnings is this number." God damn. So then he got like a father thing. He wanted to know if I was selling drugs.
Oh, Lord.
Nobody can make that much money announcing a fake pro wrestling match. Oh, yes, they can. So anyway.
Well, listen, your dad was probably losing some sleep over it, but you don't need to lose any sleep thanks to Sleep Me. Are you somebody who needs extra recovery from that last workout? Or maybe you're like me and you just sleep hot in general? Well, you don't need to suffer, wake up tired, or wake up sore with Sleep Me's award-winning sleep systems. This is a mattress topper that goes over your current mattress, so you don't need to buy a new mattress. It uses water's thermal powers to cool your bed as low as 55 degrees. That means no matter how hot you get, you can sleep at your ideal sleep temperature. Sleep Me makes customizable, climate-controlled sleep solutions that help you improve your entire well-being. Take it from me, I'm sleeping better than ever. Prior to chilly sleep, I didn't have dreams. Now I'm having bright, vivid, colorful dreams.
I love that.
That tells me I'm getting deep REM sleep, Jim.
Yep.
And it works.
Conrad, I've experienced this.
Yeah.
Through all my sleep, I got sleep apnea. A lot of guys know that. And I didn't have dreams for years and didn't even realize it. I bet you didn't realize it either.
No.
Because I don't wake up and say, well, I wonder why I didn't have a dream last night.
Right.
We don't do that.
Right.
And then when I started hitting the REM sleep again, that's when the colors came back.
Yeah.
And it was more vivid. It all fits together. So, we talk about this a lot. Dadgummit, you got to have a good night's sleep.
Yes.
It's not mundane. It's not predictable. It's not, hey, get out of my yard type bullshit. Everybody needs to get a good night's sleep.
Right.
Recharge those batteries and be better to your body. And this is one way to start. And it's painless. It's easy. It's so simple. And you can save 20% off right now.
Why wouldn't you do that? Seriously, check out the customizable climate-controlled sleep solutions that help you improve your entire well-being. It works on all bed types, even adjustable beds. And it even works if your partner likes to sleep at a different temperature than you. Take it from me. My wife wants to get into a warm bed, but she doesn't want to get all hot and sweaty. So she gets into a warm bed, then it cools her off, and then it warms her up to wake her up. It's automated. It does it on her side of the bed every night. Now, as for me, well, I like to sleep cold all night. We're doing it in the same bed. You can do this too. And scheduling has never been easier than with Sleep Me. There's an app for that, man. They've got two different water-based systems right now, the Dock Pro and the Cube. Both are mattress toppers that get you down to just 55 degrees, and you decide where it's most comfortable. But 55 degrees, man, that's cold.
That's
you can go all the way up to 115 degrees too. So you find your temperature and boom, it's perfect every single time. The Dock Pro is the newest, latest, and greatest, the most powerful system for perfect sleep. If you need better athletic recovery or you're suffering from hot, uncomfortable sleep, you just got to check out Sleep Me at sleep.me/JR. That's sleep.me/JR. Plus, as a listener to this podcast, man, you can save up to 20% on a sleep system when you use our promo code JR. It really is a game changer. You got to check it out for yourself. As my friend Jim says, it costs nothing to look.
Nope.
Sleep.me/JR. Be sure to use our promo code. Save yourself 20%. Code JR. So listen, Jim, you talked about being a referee. We never really spent much time talking about that, though. Are you excited to step between the ropes? I mean, here you are, a guy who's grown up a big fan. This was always a treat when you got to see the matches, and here's this really grand stage, and it's a sacred ground sort of thing. And you don't cross this barrier, and you have to know what you're doing to get in here. And I mean, all that sort of respect is really drilled into your brain. And now you're the third man in the ring. Are you excited, nervous, anxious?
Heck yeah. And nervous, scared. I'm scared. No doubt about that. No lie. Excited. Because every match was I see we have so many referees in all the major companies. I guess in almost all, even the Indies have got 2 or 3 referees there.
Mm-hmm.
So you spend time with the referees. Then they have time to go over the match with the individuals involved, just to make sure they got their I's dotted and T's crossed and everything's cool. But when I was refereeing, I refereed every match on the card. So, and most of the time, a big card would be like 7, maybe 8 matches. And I call it, and one referee, here was booked, could have been Jerry Usher, could have been Jack Howell, could have been me, whomever was booked in those towns. They were, you worked them all. And that's why they had to be careful not to abuse the referee too badly before you got to the end of the night. So it made some, so in other words, if I took a bump in the early part of the match of the night and it affected my leg, let's say, for example, then I needed to limp or register the rest of the night on that leg. So it may sound, well, of course you would. Well, some people might not think about it that way, because you see a lot of guys right now that don't sell much.
Right.
All of a sudden they've recovered. They took a DDT and something else, and well, look at them. They're just going fire. So I don't get that logic, but it is what it is, I suppose. So it was a hard job. And I mean, by the end of the week, you'd be sore, kind of beat up. Just guys pushing on you, shoving and leaning and everything. But I was having so much freaking fun. It was just awesome. So yeah, I enjoyed that little part of my life. And Cowboy would book me. I know that one of the reasons Cowboy booked me was because he admired the fact that I could roll a joint while driving. And of course, you steer the car with your legs.
Right.
Don't try this at home or anywhere else.
Steering with your knees, though, is the way to do it.
Yeah, that's what I did. So, and he was always impressed. We should have thought of getting a pipe or something. It'd been a lot easier. So anyhow, I think Cowboy liked that. That was one of my added on skills. So he was funny.
Let's talk about some of the bigger matches that you would have refereed. You've told us before that you worked Harley Race and Dory Funk Jr.
Yeah.
What was some of the advice or some of the things you may have picked up from the NWA champions here?
Well, that's an interesting story. They worked in Tulsa at the convention center, which was the largest building at the time in Tulsa. And it was I don't think Cowboy was there. He had in and out and stuff. That was a little tumultuous, to say the least. Anybody's read my book, either Slobber Knocker or Under the Black Hat, you get a kind of a picture of what it was like there. A lot of ego, a lot of power plays, and all that. All those guys that would go butter up Leroy and knock all the booking, they didn't last long, ironically. Who'd have thunk it? Idiots. So, they were willing to screw somebody around for their $40 a night job and not have any remorse in that whatsoever. So, I did a lot of the NWA title matches. Dory and Harley was not the first one, or it might have been the first one, but it wasn't the only one. As a matter of fact, I even got flown to Kansas City to do a match there. I thought that was kind of cool, getting to ride an airplane to go to work. I don't think it's so cool anymore. And then of course, at one run there, Conrad, Hodge's NWA junior heavyweight title was the big deal. It was a big deal.
Right.
And I called those matches. It got me some heat with the older referees. I remember Jerry Usher telling Cowboy, said, "You're giving the boy," I was at that time, "you're giving the boy all the good matches, booking all the good towns." So, the guys they just give you the cold shoulder and stuff like that. And of course, I had good old Leo Voss. Leo, what do I need to do about this deal? Leo was it's like being in a nonviolent mafia, and Leo was a made man, and he knew where everything was buried, and he knew every trick in the book. He understood psychology in the locker room, which is where I've learned it's so important to have a locker room that can be as happy as it can. We have to understand that because of the subjectivity of booking, and that in the fact that the eraser is the most powerful weapon in wrestling, we have to understand that paranoia is going to run deep. And it's just never going to change. It's that way today. I don't care how much money guys are making. I do care. I care. I'm happy for them. Make all you can, man, and save and pay your taxes. Are you ready to walk away on your terms where you can pay your bills? And get debt free if you can.
Hey man, is it just me, or are we all busier than ever during the springtime? I don't know if it's because the weather's nice, or there's a time change, or it's daylight longer, but between taking care of the outside of the house and kids finishing school and running new errands and getting the outside ready, it feels like, where does the day go? Where does the time go? Well, let me give you a little pro tip this spring. Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, and they can help you fuel up fast with ready-to-eat meals that are delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, you'll eat well, and you'll tackle everything on your to-do list. Not only that, it's better for you, man. I got to tell you, I was a little skeptical. I've tried a few of these in the past, and they were okay, but that's how I would describe it. Man, it was good, but it wasn't great. Factor is great. This is the best one. I'm now a Factor customer. I'm going to give you a promo code so you can try it at the end, but I am a weekly subscriber, and I've never, ever had a bad one. And I have to admit, it's gotten me out of my rut. I'm trying some things I wouldn't have normally tried, but I've even started taking these dudes to the office. Mom and Dad were skeptical. I brought them two, let them pick which one they wanted. They loved it. They're using Factor too. You're going to love it. With Factor, you'll skip the grocery store, all the chopping, the prepping, the cleaning up too. These are fresh, never frozen meals that are ready in just 2 minutes. All you got to do is heat them up and enjoy. That's it. Maybe you're looking for calorie conscious options. They got you. You can get meals that are $5.50 or less per serving using their Calorie Smart option. Maybe you're vegan or veggie, they can hook you up too. Maybe you're trying to do keto, you can do that too. They've got it all here. And maybe you're even looking for a little extra protein. Try Protein Plus. There's something for everybody, no matter what you're looking for. We're talking 34 different chef-prepared, dietitian-approved weekly options. And because it's dietitian approved, you know for sure it has everything you want and nothing you don't want. And man, I love it. I love the variety. I think we all get in a rut where we get tired of eating the same things. Well, they can even take care of your other stuff, like your snacks. They've got like 45 different add-ons. They can even take care of breakfast. They got apple cinnamon pancakes or bacon and cheddar egg bites. I can't recommend it enough. I have been blown away by the quality. Every time I opened one for the first week or so, I thought, okay, they've all been good so far, but this one No, that one was good too. Not only does it taste great, it's also cheaper than takeout, and man, is it faster. How do you beat 2 minutes? I can't recommend it enough. This May, get Factor, enjoy clean eating without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered right to your door. Just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. Head right now to factormeals.com/JR40 and use code JR40 to get 40% off your first box. That's JR40 at factormeals.com/JR40 to get 40% off your first box. Factormeals.com/JR40 and the promo code is JR40. Let's talk about what your schedule was like back then. For one crew, Monday was Tulsa, Tuesday was Little Rock, Wednesday was Springfield, Thursday was Wichita Falls, Friday was Oklahoma City, and Saturday was Joplin, Missouri.
Yep.
The other crew would work Shreveport on Monday, Monroe, Louisiana on Tuesday, Baton Rouge on Wednesday, Jackson or Vicksburg, Mississippi, or New Orleans, Louisiana on Thursday, Lafayette, Louisiana on Friday, and Saturday in Oklahoma City. What were some of the highlights or lowlights of being a referee and working all these towns here in Mid-South?
Well, there's a little political thing going on. Jack Howell was he wasn't a real good guy, and a lot of drugs, and I'm sure unlicensed weapons and things of that nature. But he was friends with Grizzly Smith. They hung together. When Cowboy went back, I'm trying to think of how it all came about, but Cowboy was not there, and I think the Leo may have been furloughed. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'd get some hellacious bookings from Grizzly. Grizzly wanted me gone because he wanted all those clubs getting a good shot at all those clubs that I was booked on, and I was making the more money than the other referees because the houses were bigger. That's all. And then it was a shit. I mean, I can't go from. I think I had one booking where I went from Lafayette, Louisiana, to Oklahoma City, back to Louisiana. Some little chicken shit, Homa or L'Oranger. And I said, I can see where the writing was on the wall there. Look, we're paying our own expenses.
Right.
We're buying our own gas. We're paying for our own motels. All that stuff, man. And so it was unlike our federal government. I don't like to run at a deficit. So there you go.
And we don't get a chance to do this very often, but let's do a little word association with some of the names from the territory back then, because this is really a who's who. Luthez.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about Luthez?
Classic pro. If every wrestler that is in the business today handled themselves as honorably and with respect of the business and those that help build it and are contributing to it today, the pro wrestling business would be absolutely amazing. He was perfect. I mean, even from his look, he looked like Secretariat. He looked like a thoroughbred. He was always so polite and so friendly. So just think of yourself if you're a baseball fan, Connie, and you get to hang around Babe Ruth.
Right.
That's what it was. And for those of us that love pro wrestling and are passionate about it, if it was, it was a hell of a deal. Because Luthez, when I was a kid growing up, there wasn't a magazine you could buy that didn't have something, picture, story, whatever, about concerning Lou. So, but I love talking with him. We one of the funniest stories he ever told. He and I were talking about tough guys, and you find out that a lot of shooters like to talk about other shooters just because they admire them and stuff, respect. So Lou has this. We're talking about these guys, and I said he was talking about this guy and that guy who's tough. And Lou's go-to was the short double wrist lock, which people had rather call it Kimura.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same hold.
Right.
Same hold, but it's not as cool. So take that for what it's worth. So that was Lou's go-to. So if you got somebody that's a little froggy, you can bet your ass they're going to get the double wrist lock much sooner than later. So we're talking about all these guys, and I said the one guy he never mentioned was Hodge, Danny Hodge, and I said, hey, Lou, what about Hodge? He said, oh, wait a minute, that's a different deal. He said that's a different deal. He ain't like the rest of us. Type dialogue, but Hodge was universally respected in that regard. And for a guy like Luthez to say something like that and put him like in this little pedestal, I thought was sublime.
What about Dick the Bruiser? What can you tell us about Dick the Bruiser?
My biggest experience, I assume, with Dick the Bruiser, he was a special referee for a big match that in Mid-South in New Orleans. And Cowboy would do that occasionally. Look at Bruiser's right. If you're watching on YouTube, look at the Bruiser's right arm.
Yes.
And look at that shrunken in bicep.
Yes.
Yeah, he tore a bunch of them. And of course, they just keep on working because if you didn't work, you didn't get paid.
Right.
So anyway, I went to New Orleans Airport to pick him up, flying in from I guess Milwaukee. I'm guessing. I don't know. Anyway, I knew where to go. I went to the gate. You could just roam the airport at that time. TSA was not invented to any degree. So anyhow, I go pick him up. He's wearing a lime green suit type thing. It was a suit with 3/4 sleeves, about right here. Lime green. He had a lime green tank top on. And of course the slacks to match the suit. And he was about 5'8" or 9. He might have been 5'10". That's a stretch. So, but he walked bigger. As we were walking into my car, he walked bigger because he was so thick.
Mm-hmm.
And but he had that real harsh voice. He's everything you would think, Conrad, if you dropped into Pro Wrestling Island. Dick the Bruiser would be a normal habitant. He looked like a wrestler. He had cauliflower ears. He had the wrestler's blonde bleach job. He did anything he could to show off his shoulders and his arms. He's smart in that regard. But just general talk about wrestling. But I think I brought up football. I usually do when I got a football. Well, I know my audience.
Right.
So that's another situation. Back in my day, as Tony Gurria would say, you couldn't buy a wrestling magazine that didn't have something about Dick the Bruiser in it. So but I enjoy being around him. He didn't like putting the talent over, even if he was refereeing. He wanted to make sure he was over. And I've always scratched my head about those situations. But anyway, he made sure that Bruiser was in good shape and that the baby face was going over.
What about Skandar Akbar?
Oh, he's a wonderful human.
What a photo! If you're watching on YouTube, and if you're not, come on now, you got to go check this out. See Jim Ross in his referee shirt hanging out with old Skandar. Any good
Arm
Skandar
in arm. What's that?
Any good Skandar stories you can tell us?
Yeah, well, he was such a sweetheart of a guy. He was as much of a mentor to me in my early career as anybody.
Wow.
And we rode together religiously. And he was a good driver. He didn't abuse your vehicle. He kept it clean. He didn't bring shit in there and not throw it away. So, when you go through a drive-through, you want to It's your home, away from home. You're spending more time in your damn car than you are anywhere else, hardly. So, but he was another Leo Voss influence to me, in as much as the pitfalls. Watch this guy, watch that. Here's this. You try this next time. He helped me referee. He taught me more about refereeing, the nuances, and that's why I moved up the card. That's why I got the bigger towns. I was active and I was conscientious, and the first time I made $75 in one night, I was looking to buy like a farm or something. That was a lot of money, man, because I was making $25 to $40 a night referee on the other side of the territory. So making $75 is like a shit. What am I going to do with all this money?
Right.
So it was, but Akbar was big on that, and he was really big on saving money and being economical on the road. For example, if you go to a Chinese buffet and it's open from noon to 3, you want to go about 2:30, and you want to eat for 30 minutes. And by eating at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you alleviate the overwhelming need to eat. You're full. And so what that would do is it eliminate you having to have dinner that night. And by not having dinner that night, then you can save some money.
Right.
All about and Akbar was one of the best at saving and that money going to the bottom line, saving the money. And he booked for a while. He wasn't a great booker because he was like Leroy in a lot of ways. He was very straightforward and very predictable. But I think Cowboy utilized Act best when he made him a manager or a group leader, so to speak. But he was a great guy. He should be in somebody's Hall of Fame. Skandar Akbar. He got his big break to finally go to New York. He goes to New York to work with Bruno, work his 2 or 3 matches with Bruno around, maybe just one round. I guess it depended on how it drew. But he went up there for several weeks to do TVs and squash matches. Just fed him white meat baby faces one after another. Boom, boom, boom. And he was getting ready to get the break of his lifetime. And Bruno liked Akbar. They both were powerlifting buddies. And that's one of the ways the Cowboy got so close to Bruno was they trained together. And they lifted heavy. And a lot of the guys didn't want to lift heavy with Bruno because he was stronger than them. Their egos couldn't handle it. Cowboy was 500-pound bench pressure. So they both are strong as bulls. So anyway, Akbar is getting all these matches, all these wins. You're getting some interview time, blah, blah, blah. And along the way, Stan Hansen broke Bruno's neck. So that took Bruno out of the loop.
Right.
And Akbar never got his run with Bruno. I felt bad for him about that because it's not one of those dream come true things. You work in the territories, you work in these little shithole venues that got one bathroom for all the talent. God, that's miserable, Conrad. I'm serious. You can get coarse talking about it, but my God, you got one can,
right,
one stool. It's horrible. It's horrible. Today's talents wouldn't stand for it. They wouldn't. So anyway, Akbar is a sweetheart. He helped me out of a lot of situations, and he's so soft-hearted. Somebody got word to him. It was allegedly a friend to meet him in a bar near where we were staying in Shreveport, I believe it was. And he goes down there, and as he walks into the bar, he gets the regalia of club shots to his head and face with pool cues. Was like a rainstorm. He got the shit beat out of him. Walked right into the damn fire, unaware what was obviously going to happen. So he escapes. He got a lot of heat. He was a good manager as far as he wasn't afraid to get heat. Serious heat, Conrad. I'm not talking about, somebody giving somebody the finger. I'm talking about somebody wanting to do physical harm to you. And so he never he never wilted. Good stuff. I like to remember those old days.
What about Bruiser Bob Sweetan? I haven't spent a lot of time talking about him here on the show.
No, I'll give you. He was a miserable, no good piece of shit.
Oh wow! Goodness gracious!
When have you heard? When have you heard me do that before?
Never. That's a first.
Yeah, Google a guy because I don't like talking about him. I think he got charged and found guilty of molesting children. Of course, he got along with Grizz then. What a fucking deal! I didn't need to be a part of that. My life didn't need to be a part of that.
Wow, yeah. I just a quick Google says his ex-wife Rebecca once said, "quote He's a waste of skin as far as I'm concerned. He fried his brain with drugs, deserted his children, abused them emotionally, physically, sexually, mentally. Goodness gracious."
Yeah, I was doing interviews in Fort Smith. Sweet Tan was the top heel at the time because he was Grizz's buddy. Some of those cats that Grizz surrounded himself with were, you look back and say, God almighty. I've often thought about if Leroy had not been blind, a lot of that shit would not have happened. Because there's no way in the world he's going to condone.
He didn't know. Wow, okay.
Didn't know.
Yeah.
We hear the rumors, but
Right.
he'd been in the business so long that who do you believe in the pro wrestling business? You say, well, you believe people take them at their word. Well, you can take them at their word if you want to. And I got no problem with that. But I ain't. It's got to be proven to me. Or if it's just too damn dramatic, I just walk away from it. I don't need that damn drama. Nobody does. Man, when you get too wrapped up in problems that you cannot solve or affect, you're making a massive mistake in your life. So, but Sweet Tan was just a miserable piece of shit. So I'm in Fort Smith. We're in a little studio doing interviews after the show for the next week for Saturday's TV. I think we saw the little graph there. Fort Smith was on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And so you do the show that night. Then you go to the TV station and do promos and record the promos. And then they would be dropped into the Saturday show promoting the next Wednesday. So there's one of our biggest sponsors is a car dealership guy on the car dealership. He had he brought his wife and his little daughter to the interviews just to see the guys and see how it's done and all that stuff. Well, Sweet Tan comes over. We're doing something. He comes over to me and says, "Man, I could make her purr." Oh, God. Yeah, and I'm thinking, well, he's just a horny guy and on the road. And I'm trying to make excuses for the wrestler. And I'm assuming he's talking about the mom.
Oh, Lord.
And he's talking about the little girl might have been 10.
Oh, God.
Yeah. You got to filter. It's interesting what you got to learn to filter, Conrad. And it really is. Especially when I was so young and impressionable at that time. I made the right moves getting out, and some of my service was interrupted because I just couldn't handle I'm just I think I'm a better human being than that.
You mentioned him a few times, Grizzly Smith, and stories through Dark Side of the Ring and whatnot have started to come out in recent years. And of course, most of our listeners are more familiar with his son, Jake the Snake Roberts. But were there any redeeming qualities about Grizzly? I mean, all we've heard is the really dark stuff. Did you ever have a good experience at all with Grizz, or was?
Yeah, he wasn't always bad to me.
Right.
I went around him a great deal. I remember after TV interviews a few times, he'd take me to lunch, which is unusual. Sounds mundane, normal, but in pro wrestling, you find that's not the way it is. It's just a different breed of cats, man. But that's about the size of it. Buying a meal.
Do you?
I didn't like his booking. I didn't like his pointing me. He wanted me out. because he knew I had value, and I was threatening, and I was young, and so that's kind of where I would leave it. But how he hung around there again. If Leroy had sight, if he had believed the right people, like his wife, then things would have been a lot different in that respect, because it was so obvious. You know, walk into a building and walk in not hand in hand, but side by side with two, 12, 13-year-old little girls.
Oh God.
And of course, the boys are not going to say anything because he's booking and doing the payoffs. And then to give the report back to Leroy, he was, allegedly Leroy's eyes and ears. I don't know how much he told Leroy. He didn't tell him the whole truth. He couldn't tell him the whole truth.
Right.
So that's.
Do you think it was a don't ask, don't tell type situation where guys maybe suspected and assumed, but everybody was kind of afraid to ask?
Some of them knew Conrad because they participated.
Oh,
it was just horrible. It was just horrible. And lucky for me, when the referee assignments came out, the booking sheet came out, and if I was on the north end, the Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Little Rock, that end, and I didn't go to Louisiana or Mississippi, that was the south end, and that's where Jack Howe and some of his buddies went, and that was just run wide open. Drugs, women, children. It was horrible. So not having to get booked there, I sacrificed some money.
Right.
But I maintained some level of peace of mind. I went through some of the worst times in my life trying to figure out, am I at the wrong place?
Right.
At the wrong time, or should I just go do something else? I needed 17 hours to graduate. I wish I had graduated. If I had everything to do all over again, I'd have made sure I graduated. And I'm proud of my daughters who graduated. They got higher educations. But I stressed that all their life. You got to have plan B. Always have a plan B of some sort. It may be a stopgap, temporary plan B, but you got to have options. And you are the one that will create your options. So I just it was the Wild West, man. It was the Wild effing West.
You were pretty plain in saying you felt like Leroy would have stopped it, but he couldn't see it. Mm-hmm. Did Watts see any of this? How did he?
Oh, hell yeah. That's when Watts came back to take over. The Grizzlies stayed around a little while, but
Sweetan was out.
Yeah. A lot of them were out. But, you got a little territory. You got 16, 18 guys in a territory. So you can't just go crazy and clean house. What are you going to replace the guys that you're cleaning house with? Who's going to, who you bringing in to make? You still got to sell tickets, and it takes time to get people over. So you got to keep guys around a little while to get the juice out of them that you've invested. In other words, Sweetan probably lost a Cowboy 10 times on his way out. I refereed some of them. It's funny how guys work. When Sweetan would work with a baby face other than Watts and Hodge, again, Hodge, like Luther said, oh, he's a different deal. Hold on. Hodge, different deal. He worked different. He was a bully to all these baby faces.
Right.
And stiff. All that stuff. He hit me so hard one night, it bloodied my nose, and he did it on purpose. One of these deals. So where you step over just a little bit more so I get a better shot at you, boom.
Elbow right in the nose.
Right in the nose. So what I learned there, you know what I learned about that situation, Conrad? He was right-handed. Sweetan, the worthless piece of shit, was right-handed. And I was breaking him on the right side. So in other words, I put my fat ass face right in front of his boom.
Yeah.
so if I, when I would going forward, I learned that you break on the opposite side.
Right.
And referees that are working a match with right-handed wrestlers and they're breaking on the right side are making a massive mistake. It's simple. Just take a step around.
Right.
Take a step this way or whatever, you know. So it was, I learned a lot, but he was a bully, a bad guy, bad person. You know, how would you even, I don't even understand, man, how he could hang around as long as he did. He had he had a long run. He worked at San Antonio and around Central States, this nickel and dime shit. He never got a big break. And the irony of that is he was a pretty good hand.
Why did wrestling allow a culture like this to exist back then?
Well, there was no sanctioning bodies of any magnitude.
But wouldn't promoters talk to each other? Like, why wouldn't so and so give a heads up to another promoter?
I don't know. I think it's just some kind of honor among thieves.
That's a shame, man.
It's like you learn a lot about the Italian mafia on The Sopranos. I still watch it on Facebook as I expose my ignorance. I have fun watching it. Those little clips.
Yeah.
I like those because they tell you that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Boom, boom, boom. I like that. It's quick. But it's just funny that in that world of mystique and mystery, so to in a large degree, it's just what guys will compromise themselves in doing. How many? Okay, here's a good question for you. How do you combat adultery in pro wrestling? If you're a responsible owner and you want to do what's right for the family of the talent you got, not only financially but morally and all that stuff, then how do you condone those out of marriage relationships? I'm not saying you should. Maybe that's taking it way over the line. Probably is. But seriously, people they turn their heads on things, and so I feel you're kind of between a rock and a hard spot. So crazy shit, Connie. Crazy shit, buddy.
Killer Carl Cox. Any stories you can tell us about him?
Yeah, one of the greatest workers I ever officiated. Tougher than son of a bitch, boy. Walter Herbig. Tough. Big star for Jim Barnett over in Australia. Cowboy worked with him here, there, and yon. It's one of the reasons. And then when Cowboy got all the rest of the points where he could hire and fire whoever he wanted, this is one of the first guys he brought in. And he got over as a babyface, even though he was a stone cold heel. He had a great program with Dick Murdoch. All the stories you hear about Murdoch wanting to do comedy are true. He loved doing comedy. He loved incorporating Three Stooges mannerisms into his act. So, and they got a good program going. And they're working on a Wednesday night show, and I'm in Baton Rouge. And Murdoch gets forced back into the corner by Cox. Cox then going to do something. Murdoch starts jacking around like this Three Stooges. Murdoch. Yes. Cox ain't going for it. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's the fastest, hardest, silent killer I've ever seen of a right hand. Boom. And Murdoch's knees started wobbling. Cox pulls me into the corner with he and Murdoch. So, and the reason why was to help Murdoch stand up because he was out. And so, Cox and they'll lock up. Cox said, "Don't quit fucking around, Dickie. We're going to draw money here. We're not going to draw any money doing this comedy shit." So, and then Murdoch got straightened out and had a classic. Murdoch's probably the most underrated wrestlers I ever refereed or worked with or broadcast or whatever. And one of the reasons is just this story. He picked the wrong place at the wrong time to get his comedy in. But when he was motivated and focused, Conrad, he was awesome. Dick Murdoch was awesome, and Carl Cox was awesome. Carl Cox taught Murdoch a lot of things Murdoch was doing psychologically. Carl Cox was so brilliant psychologically. He didn't have a great body, had an athletic body, he was in shape, body was tight. God damn, man, what a professor. Fans can want to go Google it or whatever. Go check out some of his matches. Watch how he locks up. I mean, I know guys in today's marketplace, if you locked up that firm with them, that they complain to somebody. So he was just both those guys. But Watts, see the talent, Conrad? Can you see the trend?
Yes.
Watts was moving towards and what he wanted to build his territory around. Those guys were durable. They were professionals. They knew if they didn't work, they didn't get paid, and everybody wants to get paid.
We should talk about Dick Murdoch, because as great of an in-ring worker as he was, and of course all those great memories and moments that he had with Dusty Rhodes, there's been rumors for years that he was a member of the KKK. Did you hear that back then?
Well, I saw his card.
Oh, really? That you could be a card-carrying member of that?
Yep.
Okay.
I guess you can. I mean, I wasn't. I had no interest in it, but bottom line is that Dickie was. I think that when he showed me his card, he'd just gotten it. That's what my take on it was. He got a new toy to show. It's like having a new phone in today's world or something. Yeah, he was a member. I never heard him talk about him, and I rode with him a lot. We got along great, but we didn't talk about religion. You know, Murdoch, we're in New Orleans one night, and we go downtown. I think we were already downtown at the Missile Auditorium on that show, big show. And I got a van. He loved to drive that van. And because I didn't have to drive, then I loved it too. So we go to this bar that Murdoch knew of and had contacts, bouncers and the bartender or what have you. And we go in there, and this and a beautiful woman, and he kind of lock eyes. And so she comes over and sits with us. I mean, I thought ostensibly, I thought all we were going to do is have a couple of beers and get on the road. So I don't think we didn't even consider drinking and driving. There wasn't an issue, yay or nay. That's not good. So anyhow, Murdoch and her getting friendly. They're not kissing, but they're snuggling.
Okay.
Cuddling, Conrad. Conrad, do you ever cuddle?
I'm a known cuddler. Yeah, I'm quite cuddly.
All right, you are, and I love you for it. And we should get life-size Conrad dolls for Christmas.
Shipping would be outrageous.
Well, I can just get to pick them up the front door. Come on by. I'll have your bear ready. So, God damn, I lost my train of thought.
Murdoch's in the back seat.
Murdoch's got to go to the bathroom.
Oh.
And he decided to go to the bathroom just after his lady friend, had to go. Problem was, they both used the same men's bathroom. She was a female impersonator or a transsexual or something, but it was a man,
right?
Allegedly with all the equipment in place. And Murdoch was appalled. That would not go well with the Captain Redneck
persona,
legacy persona. Yes, thank you. And so he knocked him out.
Oh.
Murdoch knocked the son of his colder than a cucumber.
My goodness.
I assume chill cucumbers are cold, but nonetheless. And he grabbed me up and said, "Let's go." And while they were gone, this guy comes over it worked in the bar and says, "Hey, I was Jim then. I didn't know there was no JR." He said, "Jim, that woman is talking to Dickie, talking to Murdoch, ain't a woman." And so by then, the hustle and bustle, if you're doing a movie scene, it spills out, and the lady is not cold. We leave the bar almost like we'd robbed it, frantically, running down the street to get back in my van, parked down by the river, and Murdoch, we get in, sit down. He's driving. Of course, he's going to drive. He's got to drive. He's a redneck, and so he's sitting in the driver's seat. All of a sudden, he reaches over and grabs me by the shirt like this, and God damn it, scared the hell out of me. And he said, "If you ever tell this story to anyone, I'm going to kill you." And so I kept that story secret until after Dickie passed away. Kept my word.
My goodness, what a cast of characters here. Let's see if we can get maybe a story of a different kind. What about Ron Garvin? That's a name we haven't spent a lot of time talking about.
Oh, a tough guy. I always admire Ronnie's work ethic, and he's a smart guy. The thing that stood out to me about Ronnie was Ronnie owned and flew his own plane, and so he was one of the guys that would, sit from this town to this town or whatever. Guys always wanted to ride with him, of course. But I like Ronnie. He's smart. I don't know how his financials are today, but if I had to gamble and bet, then I would say he saved a lot of money.
He's doing all right.
Yeah, he's and it's more tough too. Boy. Don't when you talk about tough, just genuine street fighting, bar fighting, parking lot fighting guys. I thought maybe a T-shirt, parking lot fighting. He is one of the toughest. One of the toughest. When I saw him, I hearing all this rigmarole about him, I thought he's got to be a pretty good sized guy because I never worked with him. You can't tell how big or not a guy is on a magazine, a picture. It's a little tougher. So, but he Cowboy brought him in. So Bill bulked he bulked his locker room up with veterans, Conrad, that knew how to play the game.
Right.
And so a lot of those issues regarding travel and all that stuff, the bottom, everything cuts down to one thing, boom. And that is ticket sales.
Mm-hmm.
If you're putting an ass every 18 inches, then you got job security. And Watts didn't really care who was on top because the money's all going to him. So the more money we could draw, that's why he fell in love with Dog. Dog didn't do anything but sell tickets and rarely had the best match on the card. Rarely.
Well, if you're looking to have the best match on the card, you need to start every day with AG1. Jim and I really believe in athletic greens. That's why we start our day with one delicious scoop every single day. And maybe you think you don't have time to get your proper vitamin routine down, or maybe you're looking for better gut health or more energy. Maybe you just want to optimize your immune system. That's why my wife and I started taking it way back at the start of the pandemic. She knew that I was only going to do it if it tasted good. Well, man, AG1 checks all the boxes. Now, what is this stuff? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, man, you're getting 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, everything you need to start your day right. It's a special blend of ingredients to support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, your aging, all of the things. Jim and I really like it because it's lifestyle friendly. Whether you're trying to do keto or paleo, or maybe you're vegan or even dairy or gluten free, well, AG1's for you. It's got less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything, and it still tastes good. It's going to support better sleep quality and recovery, better mental clarity and alertness. And it costs less than $3 a day. Think of it as like your all-in-one nutritional insurance. And here's how you know you can trust it. Don't just take my word for it or Jim's words for it. AG1 has over 7,000 five-star reviews. Think about the last time you were so compelled to go leave a review. It was probably a negative review if we're honest. Now imagine being so impressed that you left 7,000 five-star reviews. That's where Athletic Greens is. So why not reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition? It's just one scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/JR. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/JR to take ownership of your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Great stuff, man. It works.
Yes, it does.
I'll tell you that right now. Look at my body. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, let's talk about Larry Henning. You know, this is a guy who most of our listeners are super familiar with his son, Kurt, Mr. Perfect, as we knew him in the WWF. But long before there was a Mr. Perfect, there was an Axe. What can you tell us about working with Mr. Larry here?
Well, Larry and Cowboy became friends because, again, look at Larry's chest there if you're watching on YouTube. See all the stuff you're missing if you don't pick up this YouTube option. But anyway, Larry was just probably had a 60-inch chest. Strong is naturally strong. And I may be naive, but I'm going to stand on this statement. I'd say that Larry never took a performance enhancing drug. He was a massive human being. You know, one thing about a guy, and this is a little trick of the trade, I've used it over the years. If somebody has narrow wrists,
Right.
then they're susceptible. It tells me that there's an issue there. You know, this may sound really weird, but you want those guys who got these wrists like Mark Henry. Goddamn, Mark Henry's wrist that wide. It shows potential strength points. His strength, because he's different. You know, he's got something rocking and rolling here. So, but Larry was a buddy of Cowboys from the gym days in Minneapolis, and they worked out together. And as we pointed out, both of them had those huge chests. Again, probably in that 60-inch range, and they were just, you know, they're compatible. Two big, rugged guys, a lot of similar interests. So when Cowboy got into the McGurk thing, again, one of the reasons you do that is to have access to talent, and so he was able to book Larry to come down there to do special shots here, there, and yon, and he would use it by promote it by. He didn't have to bring Larry to TV. He just got clips or little matches out of Vern's territory. And so it was always fun to see who Cowboy was bringing in. Most of them, quite frankly, the thing they had in common was big, athletic workers who he liked. And that's not a bad thing when you're bringing in talent. It helps that everybody gets along because it is a very creative, easy. At some point, the visitors got to lose.
Well, let's talk about where we are in 1975. Watson McGurk have bought out Vern and Fritz von Erich, so now it's just down to Watson McGurk. How do you hear that Vern and Fritz are out? And does that surprise you at all, or is it just business as usual for you?
Cowboy told me, and I knew the dialogue in the office. Again, remember that anything that Mr. McGurk connected with, I was aware of. That's not a brag. It's not just a matter of fact. So everything that Leroy knew, that includes sitting in the office, and because I take notes on phone calls, because that's what Leroy wanted. That they'd go over dates and things. You know, we'll bring him in, or you know, hi Moo. She'd come in for her bags of deliciousness, and so couldn't sell sex on a troop train. The women's business has gotten so much better, and thank God they're making a lot of money, and they're having big matches on TV. It's just a great deal. But boy, they can wear the Moolah could wear out her welcome. It's the same women, the same tag match, same finish, same shit. And Cowboy, for one, would do it just to not have to listen to Leroy. Leroy would do it because he didn't want to have to listen to Moolah. Remember those phone calls? Hi, Moo.
Right.
That's how that worked. Anyway.
Well, let's talk about how things evolve for you. So we've mentioned that you're sort of Leroy's personal assistant. You're working in the office. You're helping promote some towns. Sometimes you're driving the ring truck. You're even refereeing at night. You're working different crews. At times you get the short end of the stick because Grizz wants to take care of his boys, and I understand.
Yep.
But then you get the opportunity, maybe of a lifetime, that changes it all. And just to add context, as I understand, long before you ever put your toe in the water as a wrestling announcer, you had worked in radio. Can you tell us a little bit about your radio background?
Well, I never made any money as a radio talent, but I made a lot of money as a radio ad salesperson.
Got it.
Yeah. And I worked for the first FM country station in Tulsa. And that was and the market it's during the urban cowboy craze. So it was fun. It's a fun time in that format at that time in history, pop culture, because it got to be cool. Urban cowboy and all those songs and all that stuff and little rowdy country stuff. It was good. So I did well in that area. And a lot of my clients wanted me to voice over their commercials. I don't know if it's to stroke my ego or it's just because I didn't charge them or just to save money. So anyway, yeah, I enjoyed radio. I enjoyed radio a lot. And I remember, Conrad, all that time, I was a high school and college football and basketball and baseball official. So I had a schedule of I'd referee high school football on Friday nights and then have a small college game on Saturdays. And then in basketball, I picked my dates. They'd make dates available. They could take them or not. And I did a lot of junior college basketball. And that was the Wild West. And then the same thing in baseball, junior college baseball, small college baseball. So I was picking at these paydays here, there, and yon because, again, if you don't work, you don't get paid. And I like doing the games, especially football. I loved it. Loved it. So it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I did it 20 years.
So you finally get the opportunity to do commentary. You're going to be working with Leroy doing color. As we mentioned at the top of the program, he's a blind man. This is a nearly impossible task. I don't know that this could be done today.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, you got to approach it differently. That's for sure. Right. And I said this earlier, and to expound on it, just another sentence is that you got to approach it working with a blind a partner. You have to approach it like a radio broadcast. And I don't know how discerning the TV viewer was who watched pro wrestling in the 70s. I got an idea that they didn't care. I was talking a little bit more because all I was doing is telling stories. You can't describe a reverse chin lock in too many different ways and for very long. You got to be telling us a backstory and let that filter into what you're seeing on the screen. All the while never totally leaving the reverse chin lock, which there's an art form in it, I think. But anyway, that was an interesting deal. The Cowboy, I didn't know I was doing this. I didn't know I was doing commentary until we got in the studio.
Wow. Okay. So you had no chance to prep or anything. Just here's what you're doing today.
I didn't even have the clothes with me. Cowboy gave me $100 bill and sent me to Dillard's. While at Dillard's, I bought a blue blazer. I looked like a little fat weatherman. I bought a blue blazer, light blue shirt, a red tie, and I wore the pants I I had with me. And I remember coming back and let me see what you got. And oh, that'll be fine. And he said, where's my change? He wanted his change back.
Of course.
It was like, I bought it's probably maybe $20.
Right.
We weren't buying high dollar clothes here.
Right.
Off the Dillard sale rack, which I was fine with. So, it was quite an experience, but I didn't know I was going to. Boyd Pierce was not available. He was on one of his rare weeks off, and Cowboy forgot about it.
Boys and girls, that's a lesson. I don't know, listen, we like to talk about sports here on the program because Jim and I are big football fans and we'll watch basketball playoffs and what have you. And the reality is, whenever someone goes down, that creates an opportunity. And so when Boyd Pierce is out, it creates an opportunity because, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah. We needed somebody to do it. Oh, Jim, you can do it. And you become like an accidental announcer and it changes your life forever and ever. Like the course of your life is forever changed because Boyd was out and Bill forgot about it. Right.
Yep. That's it. There's something to be said about right place, right time.
Yeah. Timing's everything.
And so I was fortunate on that, those events. It did work out. I found my calling. I found what I can become, at least in my mind. God damn that hair.
I love it.
I want to slap myself.
I think you should grow it out. Wear it to Wembley like that.
Yeah. That's horrible. Anyhow, well, haircuts cost money.
You wrote in your book, as you sit down at the desk here, I dipped my head and closed my eyes and tried to summon up the voice of the greatest commentator I ever heard, Gordon Soley. I began to practice my opening to myself at the desk. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Watts, now standing behind me, interrupted and said, if I wanted Gordon Soley, I would have hired Gordon Soley. What, you asked? Be yourself, he said. How important was that advice?
It's everything.
Yeah.
Everything. I use so much of that stuff I learned in the 70s when communicating with talent today. I think all people of influence, I don't have a official title in talent relations in AEW, and that's not a complaint whatsoever. But I communicate with them the same way. They want to talk about them, not you. And they need positive reinforcement is a given. It's always that way. Because why would you want to pour negativity on somebody that's learning and that you're influencing? So I'm a big believer in positive reinforcement. But Cowboy taught me this. Now he taught hard lessons. He heard me. I guess I was subconsciously doing my Gordon Soley imitation to some degree, and he heard it and he didn't like it. And so telling me just to be myself, because that way, Conrad, everybody should be themselves.
Right.
If you got talent and you got some skill in these particular areas, well, then display it. But God dang, man, I just it was some of the best advice I ever got in my life. And my character on TV has evolved over the years. I'm not the same Jim Ross that did MidSouth Wrestling today.
No.
Or WCW or Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
So I've had to evolve and change, and that goes with the talent you're calling and the administration's philosophies and things of that nature that some of us don't even think about probably. So I embrace these new challenges, and that's why the business is so fun to me. I don't have any financial pressure, thank God, knock on wood. And so I'm doing it because I love it. Now, I wouldn't want to do it for free.
Right.
but I really still love what I do. It's not a drudgery to go to work.
Well, I know you do something for free, and that's with a little help from our friends at Blue Chew. Today's episode and all of our episodes are sponsored by Blue Chew because it really works. Remember the days when you were always ready to go? Well, now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence with BlueChew.com. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. Now, the process is simple, folks. You sign up at BlueChew.com, you consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and then once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. So no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. The Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package. And Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code JR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. The promo code JR will help you receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. We want to thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. Jim, this was quite an episode today, man. I didn't know what to expect talking about Mid-South. We really just scratched the surface. I mean, we just got to the point where you're going to call a match and sit down at the desk for the first time. You know, when you first got started in the wrestling business, you started your journey into wrestling. Did you ever imagine or hope that you would be one of the performers in the ring? I mean, you found yourself maybe an accidental referee, but did you ever imagine that you might want to try your hand at being a wrestler?
No, never. I found what I wanted to do.
But did you know that going in, that you wanted to be an announcer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I felt like that was my calling. Now, maybe I was playing mind games with myself, but whatever it takes in that respect,
yes,
to get the job done is what you do. So I put myself in that role that and a lot of it's just because of how it worked out. I thought the only other wrestling announcer of any substance, of any positivity, was Gordon. And Gordon got on TVS, and he got plastered all over it. And that was the first for the boys and the big superstation, and the proliferation and growth of cable. So Gordon was my guy because he was the only guy. Not that he wouldn't have been my guy anyway, but then I found out, and when it became more available, like in Atlanta, Joe Pedicino and Bonnie's show aired on Saturday nights. My God, I watched it every week, it seems like, and it was like 8 hours of wrestling. It was amazing. So you hear all these different shows, which all have to have an announcer. And that was something I thought, well, shit, maybe I can get good at this.
Right.
Let's see how far we can ride this pony. And, as Murdoch used to say, don't worry about the mules, just load the wagon. Let's see where we end up. And I knew where I wanted to end up. I wanted to end up being known as the best to ever do my job. And I don't think that process ever ends. At least it doesn't for me, because that would indicate some level of complacency. And that's not fair to yourself or anybody else that gives a shit about you, is to become complacent. So it's been a really interesting run. There's so much. The Mid-South thing was really a unique deal.
How did you stick to it? You're not making a ton of money. You're not within favor with a lot of the guys. And man, I'll be honest, I didn't realize that it got this dark in this space. Like, we first sat down and clicked record, I had no idea that we would wind up talking about some of the darker subjects that we talked about today. I'm glad you were able to be candid and open and honest, and I'm glad we had that conversation. I think it's valuable.
When am I not open and honest, Conrad?
You always are, but
seriously.
Usually when we talk about this, we're talking about the WWF or WCW eras of your career. And we might talk about a guy missing some dates and not being reliable, or maybe he dabbles in drugs. And I'm not saying those aren't things that are important, but I'm saying, man, we talked about, being inappropriate with kids and guys being in the KKK and then, physically assaulting trans people. I mean, this was a dark time, and you really, really wanted this goal, and you had to persevere through here. And I'm sure just it crossed your mind on more than one occasion.
Oh yeah.
Am I making the right call? Like, all around me is just dark, negative stuff. And you persevered and you powered through, and we're glad you did. Lord knows it worked out, but man, that had to be incredibly difficult to navigate, and just you have a crisis of conscience at that point. Like, is this where I'm supposed to be? Right?
Yeah. You're right. I second guess myself a lot in certain periods of my career because of where the business had become, what the business had become in that territory. And so then, unfortunately for me, I just assumed, well, if it's that way here, it's probably that way in another territory, as far as the female fans and all that stuff. Everybody had the old term, the rats. Well, you find out that wherever you go, there's women that want to be close to the men.
Right.
So anyway, I'm. Are you sending me text messages?
No. I am excited about next week, though. Judgment Day 2003 will be our topic. We'll be talking about Brock Lesnar and Big Show in a stretcher match, and Triple H defending the world title against Kevin
that's
Nash,
all. There's
Mr. America, and Roddy Piper, and the Intercontinental title coming back. Lots of fun stuff here next week. We're going to talk about Mid-South again a little bit next month, and we'll go ahead and wrap up our conversation today.
I guarantee you, Conrad, this show today will get amazing feedback.
Yes.
If not that you would or I would, but if we load the wagon on promotion and pull out some sound bites, I think that the show will do great numbers, because we went to some, as you said earlier, so well said, some very sensitive topics, and I didn't create we don't, people got to understand, we don't even have Conrad and I have bullet point notes that are basically used for dates and places.
Yes.
The editorial content that we provide here, the conversation that we provide here, there's nothing written down. We feel it, and then we do it, and hopefully you like it. And apparently you have for the last several years, and which we're very thankful. Don't ever think we're not. I'll be doing this podcast long after I'm not on television, if my plan goes according to Hoyle. And who the fuck is Hoyle? And why would you name somebody Hoyle? Anyway.
Hey, this is the National Treasure, Nick Aldis, and I am recommending that you go to savewithconrad.com for all your home buying needs. Not only would I recommend Save with Conrad to friends and coworkers, I have many times already. If I know that they're house hunting, my first recommendation to them always is get in touch with Conrad. His team are the real deal, and they will be straight up with you and do everything they can to get you in that house.
NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
At savewithconrad.com.
So all good, buddy. It's a good show.
Jim Ross is going to be in Baltimore at Celeb Fest. You don't want to miss him. It's May 21st. Baltimore Celeb Fest has all your information. It's going to be a who's who of professional wrestling. The Freebirds are going to be there. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Devon Dudley, our man Danhausen, Ultimo Dragon, so many more. BaltimoreCelebFest.com. A couple of weeks later, Sunday, June 4th, you'll be doing a virtual signing with KNS WrestleFest. You can find out all the information at Facebook.com/KSW WrestleFest. So KS WrestleFest on Facebook is where you need to be. They'll have photos and AEW figures, trading cards, even barbecue sauce. You can even mail-in items. That's over at facebook.com/KS WrestleFest.
Isn't that real cool? They're going to sell. They're going to sell. They bought some sauce and stuff, and that's a good aggressive entrepreneur. The guy's thinking outside the box.
Yes,
I love it. So everybody I work with so far has been great. So it'll all be good. I love those appearances.
You're going to have a lot of fun catching up with your old pals on August 4th too. The Gathering in Charlotte, quite the lineup. Kurt Angle, Kevin Nash, Abdullah the Butcher, Tully Blanchard, JJ Dillon, Gerald Briscoe, even Greg Gagne. Lots of folks announced. You can pick up all your tickets and information over at tmartpromotions.com. And man, we would love to have your feedback. Interact with us on social media at JR Grilling on Twitter and Instagram, Grilling JR over on Facebook. If you haven't been watching the show, today would have been a great day to watch, just to put some pictures with some of these names you're hearing. It's Grilling JR on YouTube.com. That's Grilling JR on YouTube.com. By the way, if your business targets men that are 25 to 54 years old, pretty much no better place to check it out and advertise than right here on Grilling JR. You've heard some of the same sponsors year after year. Why is that? Well, because it really works. There's very little waste. Go right now to advertisewithjr.com. That's advertisewithjr.com. Speaking of nostalgia, I mean, we talked about the very beginning of Jim Ross's career. Well, along the way, my man had a radio show, the old WSB radio show in Atlanta from the early 90s. We've got nearly 50 recordings for you, waiting for you over at adfreeshows.com. You'll hear JR's conversations with Jesse Ventura, Rick Rude, Cactus Jack, Dusty Rhodes, Tony Schiavone, Larry Zbyszko, and so many more. Check them out right now at adfreeshows.com. And of course, this is the time of the program where we remind you it's getting nice outside. I grilled the chicken again last night. It's a Sunday tradition here in my household. I can't get enough of the all-purpose seasoning. It's fantastic. I even tried it on broccoli and Brussels sprouts over the weekend. Fantastic. Go out of your way to check it out if you haven't already. It's jrsbbq.com. They got hot sauce. They got 2 types of barbecue sauce, the Chipotle ketchup, the main event mustard, something for everybody at jrsbbq.com. Right, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some really cool gift boxes with a nice assortment of our products. It's very packed in a very sturdy way. So it better be. I spent enough damn money on those boxes. But business has been good, and we're grateful for that. JR'sBarbecue.com never closes. It'll cost nothing to look. And we're going to be adding some new items. I'm waiting on a shipment of action figures that I'm going to sign. And I haven't figured out if we're going to have time and the logistics to personalize them. But in any event, look for that coming up soon. It's a nice little offer. So it's good. And I would suggest that you can sign up for our get on our email list. Now, don't get scared. We don't do this every day. But when we have a special offer that's coming out, like on, let's say, a Friday, I might send you an email on Wednesday, just so you got a heads up. But we don't sell the list; never leaves our possession. You got my word on that deal. I made sure of that before we did it. So anyhow, business is good. It can always be better, but whatever business we have, we're grateful for. So thank you, folks, and check us out. We appreciate the business.
JR'sBBQ.com. And here's the thing, folks. This is more affordable than you imagine. I don't know a nicer way to say this. JR's giving stuff away. You can get an autographed Jim Ross trading card for $25. I just did a double take when I just saw that. I pulled the website up, JR'sBBQ.com. Back when he had action figures in stock, and you heard him just say he's got more on the way.
Right.
He's selling them autographed for $80. Like, you just can't get that. The figure is going to cost half of that. If you see him at a meet and greet, it's going to cost more than that to get it autographed. JR's hooking you up, man. There's something for everybody. Go pick up some sauce, get the all-purpose seasoning, try the mustard and the ketchup. But why not get some autographed collectibles too? It's jrsbbq.com. Seriously, the best value around. Compare his prices than anywhere else, and you will be shocked. JR is the man. He's got lots of new swag too over at grillingjrtees.com.
Yeah, look at that stuff. That's pretty cool, Conrad. I like that stuff.
Look at that plushie down there. We don't have a life-size JR, but there you go. You got a bite-size JR. That's his little snuggle buddy right there.
Yeah, right.
Listen, Jim, I don't know what I expected today when I clicked record, but this was a fantastic episode. I appreciate your candor. We tackled some subjects we don't normally talk about, but that was your experience, and I appreciate you being honest about your experience. And it would be easy for us to frame it up and say, "Oh, things were different," but a lot of that stuff was not ever acceptable. And thankfully, wrestling has become a much safer and better place because we, as a society, have become better people. And goodness gracious, thank goodness for that. But man, all the positive stuff you shared about Leroy and Mr. Voss and some of these names I would have never really had any idea about if it weren't for your show today. So thank you for letting us sit under the learning tree, if you will.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I hope that maybe somebody listening today or watching today on YouTube will leave this with one thought that will help them day to day. And if you just go away with being kind of entertained, maybe getting a laugh here or there, whatever, or getting new information that people like, that's good. But if you just got one, if you could leave with one thing, then I hope that that happens. Because that's what we do. We want to make your life better. The advertisers that we use, we have a run. We got a pick of the litter on the advertisers for our podcast. And we're very leery of who we use, and who we advertise, who we partner with. And it is a partnership. So in any event, it's been a good day, and I feel very cathartic right now. I feel very, I don't get too corny and say cleansed.
Right.
But it was really cool to get to talk about something. I hadn't talked about Leo Voss, or much about Leroy, actually, because the platform just doesn't come up.
Right.
But we'll have to do this again sometime because there's all kinds of, we're doing the movie Millie, and we have all the actors are cast. I can't tell you right now who they are, but you're going to recognize some names. And I think we're going to tape it or film it in Savannah. So I'll be hands-on. I'm a producer. I brought the project to Ash Abelson, and he's did a screenplay, and so there we go. We got the green light. We're on our way, and it's a story about Mildred Burke, based on the movie Queen of the Ring by Jeff Lean, which is a must-read for any wrestling fan. I mean that. I read it 3 times, and I probably could have read it again, but then I took it to Ash. So I got an idea for a movie, and it's the underdog female single mom in a you think the business that we talked about today was edgy? What do you think it was like for women,
right,
in a man's world in the 30s and 40s and 50s?
It's crazy,
horrible. And so we got a great that story's. I think it's gonna. I can't wait. I want to talk more about it because I'm very excited, as you can tell. But it's really cool to know that my vision is something that's going to make air.
Yes.
And I think that's really neat. I'm very grateful for that too, man. There's a lot of good things going on. So, but anyway, Conrad, thanks for your kind words about jrsbarbecue.com. And, we appreciate everybody's support. We don't want to make this a goddamn telethon. I don't need to. I'm good.
Yes.
But let's just enjoy the show. Tell somebody about our show. Get us. Hey, you ever heard JR do this podcast? I think we're fairly contemporary.
No doubt, man. We talked about the current stuff at the top of the show. Then we went old school, and we're going to pick up where we left off next month. But next week, we're going back to 2003, 20 years ago. And don't forget, this Friday, you can check out Jim Ross as the voice of Rampage. In fact, he is the voice of wrestling. And we'll see you next week right here on Grilling JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
Thanks, Connie. Thank you guys. I appreciate you tuning in today. It's been a fun show. Listen to it again. Tell a friend, and see you later.
Fight Plus is the ultimate digital platform for live sports and entertainment, and they're now offering a free 7-day trial at tryfight.com. Fight Plus is packed with a premium live event schedule, over 1,000 hours of live action every year, and a library of more than 4,000 hours on demand, plus exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. Fight is a great partner of ours. They support us, so let's support them. Give that free 7-day trial a shot, and you'll be a member for life. That's tryfite.com. TRYFITE.com.
Hey guys, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Need to call a timeout real quick here. I wanted to tell your listeners what I've been telling my world listeners for a while now. It's about all the incredible things happening over on adfreeshows.com.
An all-new edition of The Insiders is here, as Conrad welcomes David Saadi, the man behind so many iconic video packages WWF fans grew up on, including one that left Vince in tears.
You got it. And Conrad, I swear, I walked outside the studio and Vince was sitting down on the concrete floor, crying hysterically, just saying thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. I went up to told Kevin, he says, good job, can't wait to see it. 15 minutes later in the stairwell, Vince is still sitting down in a different spot now, crying, saying thank you. Thank you.
Jim Johnston created the soundtrack for generations of WWE fans, with some of the most iconic themes in history. Jim sits down with Conrad to take us behind some of those classic themes, including The Ultimate Warrior.
And then I recorded that. And then just over that, you're just doing. You know, it's so simple, but that's what felt like him.
Hey, that's just a small taste of what Ad Free Shows has waiting for you, including a brand new perk, getting to join in on the live recordings of the shows with 4 levels to choose from. See for yourself why Ad Free Shows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now at adfreeshows.com. That's right, sign up today at adfreeshows.com.